Hello, BookTube, and happy St. Stephen's Day. I thought I'd do another shelf tour, this one up in the stratosphere. I'm on a step stool. My surly houseboy is not around, obviously. I thought we'd go through just a shelf of what looks like biographies, chosen at random for St. Stephen's Day, starting with a paperback of Julian Simon's The Telltale Heart, his biography of Edgar Allan Poe. I would much rather have this in a hardcover. I must have found this at the Brattle. This is Julian Simons not only wrote murder mysteries of his own, but also wrote some really, really good studies of murder mysteries. And here he branches out and does a biography of Edgar Allan Poe. That's not quite as good as Silverman's biography of Poe, which I don't have, but it's still really good. Then we have Stefan Zweig. This is his biography of Erasmus of Rotterdam, and an old paperback here. Good Lord. I got this at the Brattle in 2011, before we were talking to each other. And this author is famous for a whole bunch of biographies and a whole bunch of other writings. And there he is taking a shot at Erasmus. And then we have John Addington Simons. This is his biography of Michelangelo for the Modern Library. I'd never seen this before with a dust jacket, so I grabbed it. This was also from the Brattle from 2014. So once again, before we knew each other, this is just a terrific author. He cannot go wrong. So when I saw this, I grabbed it. Let's see here. I want to make sure we don't dislodge the camera. Oh, great. All right, this is another Brattle find. This is Quentin Bell's biography of his aunt, Virginia Woolf. This is obviously, I mean, it's a nice hefty book and it's extremely eloquent. It's not probably what you would want for your only biography of Virginia Woolf. I mean, it's by a family member. Those ordinarily have to take them with a huge box of salt, and this one too, but I'd forgotten how good a reading experience it was. Oh, okay, then we have the old Penguin Lives series. Penguin did a whole bunch of these short biographies of different people, and that has often been done. The gimmick here was to get non-specialists to write about particular individuals, assuming that this was supposed to be kind of a very eloquent, personality-driven overview of the figure rather than any contribution to the scholarship. I have a few of them. A few of them were really good. Most of them were not. If you set up a program like that, you are setting yourself up to write ridiculous books. And that was mostly the case, but not always. Like, for instance, Elizabeth Hardwick wrote a volume on Herman Melville. Elizabeth Hardwick was most famous as a poobah at the New York Review of Books, but also as a novelist in her own right, and with no previous particularly pronounced connection with Herman Melville, but her Melville book is a gem. Just beautifully, beautifully done. What have we got next? Okay, this is a mass market paperback. This must have come from the Brattle as well. Probably very recently. I think I got this recently. This is Roy Jenkins' biography of Asquith. And I don't want this mass market paperback. I want a hardcover of this book or an ebook. I don't know if there's an ebook of this. And Roy Jenkins, of course, became famous as an MP himself. This is, and also as a biographer of Gladstone. His big biography of Gladstone was one of the most popular things that he ever wrote. And this is really, really good. This is another example of this author just being really good. And I guess another example of an author being famous in his own right, in addition to writing a biography. I don't know if that's going to continue on this shelf. Okay, this is this is a badly beat up copy of Philip Magnus's biography of King Edward VII, one of my favorite English monarchs. I have the hardcover of this, and I much prefer. I'm going to have the little Penguin paperback. I'd much prefer it if the orange on the spine wasn't completely faded. This must be a double or a triple, and it's not where it belongs. Obviously, it's not with royalty. I have a whole gigantic royalty section. Okay. This is by Philip Knightley and Colin Simpson. This is The Secret Lives of Lawrence of Arabia. Up until a certain point, I think this came out in the 1960s. Is that right? 1969. Up until a certain point, if you saw a book that said The Secret Life of Lawrence of Arabia or The Secret of Lawrence of Arabia or anything like that, it had to do with pederasty. Aside from that, the man didn't have a single secret moment in his life. So so if that doesn't shock you, I think I got this because it was $1. It is not a meaningful contribution to Lawrence studies, and Lawrence is a favorite of mine. The last person that I know of, really, to have that old honorific naming system where he has a prepositional phrase of his own, that sort of went out of fashion. I don't think it happened unironically after him, and I think he's a fascinating figure for a whole bunch of reasons. But this book, this would be beating the weeds for that kind of thing. Okay, then we have another biography that doesn't belong here. This is The Last Emperor, a biography of King George VI by Peter Townsend, who was the lead guitarist for The Who. This is a pan paperback that has been reinforced a million times, but it doesn't look like it would take another reread, and it doesn't need to, because I recently found a hardcover of this. So I don't, aside from the cover art, I don't need to keep this. And it shouldn't be here anyway. It should be over with. Okay, so I will not put anything back on the shelf, because the shelf obviously needs re-examination. Okay, all right. This is a biography of John Dryden by Sir Walter Scott. So I guess that's it. This is a theme for this shelf: is biographies written by people who have biographies written about themselves. This is a great novelist writing about a great poet, both of whom are now so resoundingly out of the reading taste that the book becomes a kind of curiosity on its own. I'm pretty sure that this was given to me as a gift by someone who thought it was the someone who thought it was the quintessential Steve book, and it pretty well is. Then we have John Addington Symonds again. Okay, great. This is a much more famous. His biography of Michelangelo is not famous anymore. It never really was famous. It's just really, really interesting, really, really good. But his translation of the autobiography of Benvenuto Cellini, this stayed famous. This is still the one you're most likely to find, this or George Bull. And I like his better than the Bull translation. This is an old modern library. Once again, I put a clipped piece in here, but I'd rather not. I guess this is a cute little paper or hardcover, but what I really want is to find a nice, big, ornate hardcover, full-sized hardcover edition of the Symonds translation of this book, which I'm pretty sure I can do. It was really popular. It had a lot of play. I'm sure there are editions like that out there. The Brattle will provide. Okay, then we have another Erasmus biography, cute little hardcover that. Okay, I would want this in a different format. I wouldn't want this. I got this in 1995. This is Huizinga's biography of Erasmus of Rotterdam. Let's see, there we go. And it's really, really good. Maybe the best one-volume biography of Erasmus that there is. Kind of amazing to me that there aren't more of them, but more of them to choose from in like the late 20th century or in the 21st century. But I'm all in favor of it, but a little hardcover like this, not only will it be inhospitable to a reread, but it won't take any reviews. I like to do this. I like to clip out any kind of paperwork, any kind of reviews or essays or whatnot, and put it in the appropriate book, and this won't do it. Anyway, I will keep an eye out for a nice big copy of it, if there ever was one. Okay, then we have another Penguin Lives. Okay, great. This is one of the other great ones that they did. This is Roy Blount, who was kind of famous in his own as a writer. Here he is writing about Robert E. Lee, a figure, again, with whom he had no obvious connection. So I went into this very skeptically. They had these die-cut covers to all the Penguin Lives did. You get just the portrait, and then the cover has a hole in it. I went into this skeptically because A, the author has no formal training writing about this period or this subject, and B, Lee biographies always give me the willies. They can go so wrong. This one did not. This is brilliant. Just brilliant. The best short biography of Lee that I've ever read. Then we have Harper paperback. Oh my, okay, well, This is a famous book. This is Agatha Christie's autobiography, and I think I got this at a charity shop. Yeah, in 2018, I got a copy of this just because I think I liked it, and it was probably 50 cents or something like that. That is a great cover photo. The American version of this book, the hardcover, it has a boring cover, a very boring cover, but this has a lot of reviews and clippings in it, and it can't take that. And they're sticking out on the edge, which is always bad. What I really should do is look around at charity shops or at the Brattle for a hardcover of Agatha Christie's autobiography, which is mesmerizing reading. It is, she worked on it as a tonic for everything else that she was doing for a long time. This was an author who did not ponder on works, but this one she did, and you can really tell. I'm not saying that it's better than Why Didn't They Ask Evans, but it reads very different. It's a very different register of the same author. I love it. So really, I should have I think I have an ebook of it, but I should have a big hardcover that people routinely write about Agatha Christie. I should have a big hardcover so that I can fill it with stuff. Oh my. Okay, well, you aren't going to last long, are you? Goodness gracious. Okay, this next one is a trade paperback. I got this in the summer, but it's not going to last. It's not going to take even a reading. This is R.W. Chambers' biography of Thomas More. I probably got this in the summer because I was probably steeped in Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall books, and Thomas More is dealt with in those books. An author, a biographer by the name of Marius, wrote a newer biography of More that is pretty good. It doesn't have anything like the eloquence of Chambers. Chambers is just such a great, great writer. But this, I'm sure I grabbed it because it was $1, but I need a sturdier copy of it. Okay, well, this really is a shelf full of books about famous people written by other famous people. Although in this case, the famous person is famous because of the subject. This is Fulk Greville's biography of Sir Philip Sidney. An old hardcover. I got this at the Brattle in 2010. And it's, again, like with, what was the one? Like with Quentin Bell's biography of Virginia Woolf, you wouldn't want this to be your only Sidney biography. There was one just recently by Duncan Jones that's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But they all rely on this. All of them do, rely on Fulk Greville. So it's nice to have a copy of his book to read through it. I did the same thing. I had the same rationale with Cavendish's biography of Cardinal Wolsey, which no biography of Cardinal Wolsey, not that there is one any in the recent years, but no biography of Cardinal Wolsey can do without Cavendish. So it's nice to have Cavendish. The same thing with Fulk Greville and Philip Sidney. No biography can avoid it. So it's nice to have the book, just unmediated. Okay, all right, this really is the theme of this shelf. This is a biography of Charles Dickens from 1904 by George Gissing, the author of The Odd Women and New Grub Street. So this is a biography of the Victorian era's foremost author by the Victorian era's foremost fourth-place runner-up of authors, because Gissing wrote a lot of really bad stuff. He wasn't a consistently interesting or good or polished author at all. Not at all. His private life was every bit as much of a chaos fest as Dickens's private life was, but the professionalism that they brought to the page was radically different. When Gissing is great, he is as great as Dickens, but he's only that great a couple of times in a long writing career. And his biography of Charles Dickens is one of many that I have. It's really enjoyable. Gissing is another perfect demonstration of what I often say, which is that if nonfiction paid, a lot of people that we know of for novels under their name would never have written any novels. They've just written really good nonfiction for their whole life. I don't think Gissing had a call. Dickens, I think you could say, had a call to write fiction. I don't think if you'd offered him the world on a plate in terms of gold bullion, I don't think he would have given up fiction, ever. I think he wouldn't even have sidelined it. But Gissing, his book on Dickens is really good. It's every bit as good as his best fiction. Oh, then this next one was a find. This was a find from up in Vermont. I found this up in Vermont. This is by the autobiography, My Island Home, the autobiography of James Norman Hall. I found it up in a charity shop up in Vermont with the library covering already on it, everything. And of course, Hall was one half of Nordhoffen Hall, who wrote Mutiny on the Bounty and its two sequels. And this is the story of his life. From born in Iowa, grew up in Boston, knew Boston really well, knew Boston's used bookstores really well, and then moved to the South Seas. And I had a blast reading this up in Vermont because this is such a, well, I don't know. On paper, he comes off as such a soft-spoken guy, such an unassuming guy. This is not, a history of my triumphs at all. It was a very companionable, very intimate feeling book. You really feel like you know the author by the time you're done with the autobiography, which you'd think would be the absolute sine qua non of autobiographies just in general, but usually not. Agatha Christie, for instance, in her autobiography, you don't know her any better. In fact, you might know her worse. Edith Wharton, same way, in a backward glance. You don't know her any better when you're done. And then the last one we can deal with here, what have we got here? Okay, we're going to finish with our trend for this shelf, which is books written by people who also have books written about them. This is, although not in this case, not either one of them anytime recently, nor ever again, probably. This is a biography of James Russell Lowell by Edward Everett Hale. Neither one of those names is going to mean anything to most of you. They are Boston through and through. This is James Russell Lowell and His Friends. A great, heartfelt book, just wonderfully, wonderfully anecdotal. James Russell Lowell was a great Boston man of letters back when there were such things as men of letters, and so was Edward Everett Hale. They're both. It's not hard if you go on a walking tour of Boston with me. You're going to learn a lot about these two men. Edward Everett Hale, once upon a time, was most famous as the author of the story "The Man Without a Country," and he has a big, imposing statue in the public garden. And this is his look at James Russell Lowell from the perfect vantage point of someone who could talk right away with anyone who knew Lowell, get all of his letters, all the private reminiscences and whatnot. As a result, again, I would say, like with the Folk Revel Sydney or the Quentin Bell Virginia Woolf, or what was the other example? Wasn't there another example? Well, no, but it doesn't matter. You know the type of thing I'm talking about. Like with those books, so too with this one. This is unavoidable if you're going to write a new biography of James Russell Lowell. You'll have to find a copy of this book and study it to learn, read between the lines, chase down all the stuff that Hale mentions. See if maybe you can get your hands on it. Maybe you can find a copy of a holoscript or something like that. Of course, I don't think anyone's going to do that. I think it's been a long, long time. Martin Duberman wrote a biography of James Russell Lowell about 60 years ago, I think, something like that, and 50 years ago. And I don't think that anyone has even thought about doing it since then. And that maybe someone has thought about doing it. But in addition to authorial indifference, there's also publishing indifference. Can you imagine trying to sell a biography of James Russell Lowell to a 2023 publisher that has both their eyes squarely fixed on TikTok? It would never happen. Maybe you might be able to do it with an academic press, but even there, I don't think I know of any that are coming that are going to happen. So, but it's a fascinating life. It was a fascinating world when Boston was the hub of the intellectual universe in the United States. Those were great days. Those days, there was about a 50-year period that really, really does deserve a gigantic, sprawling narrative. Sort of like the Metaphysical Club, only a little bit bigger than that. That the Metaphysical Club was the last chance that any of these characters had to sort of strut the stage. But it wasn't big enough. It needs to be bigger than that. Something that includes more than that. But anyway, so there you go. That was just a random shelf tour. One of my last videos of the year. And with an odd theme of books written by people who wrote books. God, well, that was not planned. That wasn't planned in the video, and it wasn't planned in the making of this shelf. But I have now unmade the shelf because there's a lot of stuff here. There's no point in me holding on to paperbacks that cannot be read. There's no point in me holding on to paperbacks that cannot be used in the way that I like to use them. There's no point in that. I mean, once upon a time, I might have said the point was as a placeholder, as a reminder to myself that I need to get a better version, either an ebook or a big hardcover. But do I need a placeholder? Am I in my dotage on St. Stephen's Day? Am I going to have trouble remembering that I need a bigger copy of a book? If I were to see a bigger copy of The Last Emperor, well, I have an actual hardcover of that one, but like, for instance, Huizinga's Biography of Erasmus, if I were to see a bigger hardcover of that, is there a chance that I would forget that I want to buy it? No, there isn't. So I don't need the book. I don't need a book that I'm never going to use on the shelf as a reminder to do that. I don't need any reminders to do that. So these things should go. Plain and simple. They should go into a box in storage, or they should go out back into the wild to people who will be more gentle with them, gentle enough with them to use them. Anyway, none of that is for 2022. Just a video for now. I'm going to do another video today. I'd like to do another video today, an experiment with tech, where I once again be using you all as a guinea pig. We'll see if that video actually happens. In the meantime, I'll wrap this up for now. I will see you soon. Thank you.